few days ago, when it was supposed to be the coldest day this winter in 5 years, before today, we, the staff of English ministry, went on a retreat in the sea in Gangwon province, where we visited many beautiful sites, including the vacation houses of both Seungman Rhee and of Kim Il-sung. We also went to a museum right under the real demilitarized zone. The museum had true records of the Korean War and how the DMZ came about. There were few proud records, but most of them were sad, helpless, and brutal records between the tension of North and South Korea. To tell you the truth, I was quite embarrassed as a Korean to face such records of history. Then I also wondered how the Jews would feel about the records of Holocaust. Preparing for this sermon, I now wonder how the Jews would feel about the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the Messiah. To a modern reader, it would seem that Matthew chose an extraordinary way to begin his gospel with a long list of names. But to a Jew, this was the most natural and the most interesting and indeed the most essential way to begin the story of any man's life. The reason for this interest in genealogies was that the Jews put greatest possible emphasis on purity of lineage. If in any man there was the slightest mixture of foreign blood, he lost his right to be called a Jew and a member of the people of God. A priest, for instance, was bound to produce an unbroken record of his ancestry stretching back to Aaron. And if he married, the woman he married must produce her ancestry for at least 5 generations back. With this in background, the Gospel of Matthew, written by former Jewish tax collector, starts with the genealogy of Jesus, the son of King David, the son of Abraham. This ancestry goes back about 4,000 years from now, and at least 2,000 years from the time it was written. Jewish society then was a patriarchy, which is a system of society or government in which the father or eldest male is head of the family and descent is traced through the male line, in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it, kind of like the Korean society. It happens even to this day. And can you imagine what it was like at the time of Christ? However, to our surprise, this account of genealogy of the most famous Jew in the world, in the history, has 5 women in it. They are Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, Uriah's wife, and Mary. It is astonishing that there are any women in any genealogy of ancient Jewish patriarchy. You know how exclusive the Jews were, and 4 women listed here were not even of Jewish descent. Tamar was from Canaan, Rahab from Jericho, Ruth from the land of Moab, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite, Bathsheba. Moreover, all these 5 women in the genealogy had abnormal marriages and became marginalized mothers in unique ways. Here, I want to show you God's perspective, which is very different from men's. About Tamar, you can read her story in Genesis 38 in details. To summarize her story, after misery of losing both her husbands, Tamar had no choice but to volunteer to have a sexual relationship with her father-in-law, Judah, in order to continue the family lineage. This was probably the only way for her to survive. Her husbands, including the brother of her first husband, died, and there was only one son left in the family. But Judah was reluctant to give him to her for fear that he might die too. So there was no one to continue the family name. Remember, Judah was the first son of 12 sons of Jacob. After Judah's wife had deceased, Tamar had disguised herself as a prostitute in order to seduce Judah, who had no idea that she was his daughter-in-law. Then Tamar became pregnant. If she had been pregnant by someone else, it would have been an act where she would be burned to death by fire. But she risked her life for her calling to continue the family lineage. It says in the Bible, Judah recognized that and said, "She is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her to my third son, Shelah." And Judah did not sleep with her again. Genesis 38:26. Tamar probably raised her twin boys alone as a single mother. We do not fully understand the situation of this ancient custom. We cannot even fathom what exactly went on in her heart and what messages were exchanged between God and Tamar. But I am sure that she felt, if I perish at that moment. We don't identify with this woman, but there must be a reason for this woman to be listed here and the price they had to pay with their lives. I tried to meditate and seriously ask God. To God, they had the same upright heart of risking their lives for the right cause, whether it was for a nation, for a tribe, or for a family. The next foreign woman in the Jewish genealogy was the prostitute Rahab from Jericho. You all know how she saved the Jewish spies of Joshua and Caleb before conquering the wall of Jericho by lying and betraying her own people. According to commentaries, Rahab was a prostitute, but she was wealthy and even respected among the people of Jericho, for she owned and ran an inn. It is recorded that Rahab and her whole household got saved by the Jews, for Rahab was the leader and breadwinner of her household. We do not know the depths of her faith, but she was called righteous by faith in the book of Hebrews, which was written to Jewish audience. Then Rahab marries Jewish man Salmon and gives birth to Boaz. And Boaz much later becomes the husband of Ruth. Now I want you to expand your imagination a little bit, and can you imagine Boaz growing up among his relatives, the Jewish relatives, with a mother like Rahab and her past? Can you imagine Boaz troubled at the rumors of his mother? How do you think Mother Rahab felt about her own son being hurt by her past? Surprisingly, Rahab is on the royal genealogy, but she must have paid a price for it. According to Midrash, Rahab's son Boaz was 80 years old, and Ruth was 40 years old when they got married. And their marriage had a child called Obed. though Boaz died the day after his wedding. Therefore, Ruth became widow twice, kind of like Tamar. Ruth is mentioned as the third woman in the ancestry of Jesus. Ruth the widow stands apart from the others in that she's shown in a quite positive light. And there's a book in the Old Testament after her name, even though Ruth was a foreigner. Not only a Gentile, but a Moabite from the land of Moab, the race that had proved to be an enemy and bad oppressor to Israel. How strange it must have been for her to travel as a widow with her mother-in-law, former mother-in-law, to the land of Judah, to walk the streets of Bethlehem and notice the stares and glances at her unusual complexion. However, through the influence of godly mother-in-law Naomi, Ruth determines to follow Jehovah as Lord. Ruth's speech is amazing. She says in the book of Ruth, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me." Ruth 1:16-17. What do we learn from this Gentile woman who loved her mother-in-law more than her own mother? Then, Bathsheba being recorded as the wife of Uriah is a very serious matter. I am sure you all know the story very well, how Bathsheba got David's attention while bathing. It reminds us the mistakes of David and God's grace, all in these little words, the wife of Uriah. As Solomon is recorded as David's son, there is no name of his mother in the genealogy. Do you think they did not know her name? Of course not. Bathsheba surely became David's wife. But rather, she was recorded as Uriah's wife. It was a way of recording adultery. It means that we cannot just close our eyes as if it did not happen. The amazing thing is that David's act is recorded just as it is in the genealogy of Jesus, the son of David, the greatest king of Israel. Now think about the history books of Korea. Are there any negative facts recorded about King Sejong or any other kings in the history books? Matthew, the Jew, did not try to sugarcoat his royal genealogy. In the story, God took away the baby conceived by their adultery of David and Bathsheba, but later, after King David seriously repented, gave them another child. The prophet Nathan, who rebuked David very badly, also was the messenger of God's love through all this. All of these incidents are condensed in the words, the wife of Uriah. What a record of grace. The author Matthew also shows us the essence of the gospel in Jesus Christ, because here he shows us the barriers going down. The first barrier is a barrier between Jew and Gentile. Rahab, the woman of Jericho, and Ruth of Moab find their place within the family tree of Jesus Christ. Already, the great truth is that in Christ there is neither Jew nor Greek. Here at the very beginning of the New Testament, there is the universalism of the gospel and of God. Now, the second barrier is the barrier between male and female, which goes down. In no ordinary genealogy would the name of any woman be found, but such names are found in Jesus' genealogy. The old contempt is gone, and men and women stand equally dear to God and equally important to his purposes. Now, the third barrier between saints and sinners is down. Matthew 9:13 says, "Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have come to call not the righteous, but sinners." God can use for his purposes saints and sinners, although one has to pay the consequences for his sins. Now, the last barrier is the barrier in status, which goes down also. God used the sins of King David and the righteousness of Joseph, the husband of Mary, the mother of Jesus, who was the carpenter. Here, at the very beginning of the Gospel of Matthew, in the beginning of the New Testament, we're given a hint of the all-embracing, universal width of God's love through this record of grace. Now, I want to show you a little clip of YouTube video, and as you watch, please try to meditate on the birth pangs of Abraham's faith, producing his son Isaac, and Isaac's faith producing Jacob, and Jacob's birth pangs, and so forth.
Abraham had Isaac, Isaac he had Jacob, Jacob he had Judah in his kin. Well, then Perez and Zerah came from Judah's woman Tamar. Perez he brought Hezron up, and then came Aram, then Amminadab, then Nahshon, who was then the dad of Salmon, who with Rahab fathered Boaz. Ruth, she married Boaz, who had Obed, who had Jesse. Jesse, he had David, who we know as king. David, he had Solomon by dead Uriah's wife. Solomon, well, you all know him. He had good old Rehoboam, followed by Abijah, who had Asa. Asa had Jehoshaphat, had Joram, had Uzziah, who had Jotham, then Ahaz, then Hezekiah. Followed by Manasseh, who had Amon, who was a man, who was father of a good boy named Josiah, who grandfathered Jehoiakim, who caused the Babylonian captivity because he was a liar. Then he had Shealtiel, who begat Zerubbabel, who had Abiud, who had Eliakim. Eliakim had Azer, who had Zadok, who had Achim. Achim was the father of Eliab. Then he had Eliezer, who had Mathan, who had Jacob. But listen very closely, I don't want to sing this twice. Jacob was the father of Joseph, husband of Mary, mother of Christ.
Amen.